Tonight, the big story that we are tracking, the ugly face-off over hijab, whether the hijab can be worn in schools and colleges, has now spread right across Karnataka, led to violence in some parts. While some Muslim girls are protesting a ban on hijab, other students are arguing against any exception for the headscarf. As the protests turned violent today, the B.S. Bomai-led Karnataka BJP government decided to shut down all colleges and schools for 3 days. The issue is also now before the Karnataka High Court, where questions are being raised over constitutional rights of the students to wear the dress they would like versus the opportunity for the state to enforce a common dress code. What is the reality on the ground? We'll have a full debate today on a hijab row that once again threatens to open up religious fissures and polarize religions once again. Before that, take a look at our ground report today.
Karnataka's campuses stand divided on religious lines. On the one side are Muslim girls who want to attend classes wearing their hijab or veil. And on the other, students who don't want any exceptions made for Muslims. Things came to a head on Tuesday as girls in hijab came face to face with students sporting saffron shawls. In Mandya, a girl was heckled on her way to college by scores of students.
They started giving slogans like Jai Shri Ram, and they were telling me to remove burqa, then you are allowed to go for college and all. So even I started screaming Allahu Akbar. So I was a little bit scared there. And then when I saw the principals, everyone was just back of me, then I was okay. We must allowed to wear this. Everyone know from long years we are carrying this. None of us the right to say us to remove this, to not to take any action. Just to tell them to not to repeat this again.
Similar face-offs were witnessed in different parts of the state, from Udupi to Kundapura to Shivamogga to Davangere. In Shivamogga, for instance, where prohibitory orders were issued, a saffron flag was hoisted on campus. What started as a protest by 6 students at the government girls pre-university college in Udupi has spread to different parts of the state. The divide is clear and out there for all to see.
Hijab, this is not a piece of cloth. For them it is like a piece of, but this is something else. We cannot just give up.
Because of these students, what they are creating a nuisance over here, we are not able to attend our regular classes. Because of them, we are having the leave now.
As matters get out of hand, the Basavaraj Bommai government has ordered the closure of all schools and colleges in the state for the next 3 days.
There has been some disturbances in few places. Therefore, I am appealing to these students that they have to maintain peace and harmony, because ultimately tomorrow they have to sit together and do all the educational activities, academic activities. Therefore, peace and harmony should be maintained.
The Karnataka High Court, meanwhile, has taken up the plea by Muslim students challenging the hijab ban on college campuses. The students argue that the hijab ban is a violation of their right to equality and their right to practice their religion. The state government has claimed college authorities decide the uniform and not the government. While the state government has urged the court to ban protests, citing a Supreme Court order on the farmer agitation, the High Court has appealed to the students to stop the protests till it takes a decision. The issue was raised in Parliament, where opposition parties staged a walkout demanding students be allowed to wear hijab.
Is hijab essential to the practice of Islam? Do individual liberties prevail over collective rights of an institution? These are some of the questions that the Karnataka High Court will be looking into when it finally decides whether or not to ban hijab. For now, the Karnataka government has bought time by shutting down colleges for 3 days. The question remains, Why was this matter allowed to escalate? Along with Nagarjun, Dwarkanath and Anupai, and video journalist Shivamurthy Gurumat and Madhuwar, this is Nolan Pinto for India Today.
Let's raise some very big questions at the top. Does the hijab ban violate individual rights? That's the first question I want to raise. Should students follow college uniform or not? Is the hijab controversy politically motivated, pitting one religion against the other? Is there a place for a burqa or hijab in a modern society? Is it about free choice or is it about collective rights? These are questions that we will raise tonight. We have a stellar panel of guests. I'm joined by RJ Saima. She's a radio presenter. She doesn't wear the hijab. Vrinda Grover is advocate Supreme Court who's argued cases of gender justice for years. Zakiriya Soman, women's rights activist who had taken up the triple talaq issue and called for an abolition of Muslim personal laws. Malvika Avinash is BJP spokesperson. And Shima Mohsin is General Secretary, Welfare Party of India, based out of Karnataka. Nabila Jamal is one of our co-anchors here at India Today, and she's also from Karnataka. So we'll come to all of you, but I just want to play at the very start the video that went viral. Akshita Nandgopal, my colleague, spoke with Muskan, who, remember, was heckled by saffron-clad students as she was walking into her college in Mandya. What followed was, according to me, shameful and disgraceful. Listen in to how Muskan had to respond to how she was harassed by students shouting, Jai Shri Ram.
Saffron-clad people. Muskan, thank you for joining us here on India Today. I want you to first tell us exactly what happened with you when you were trying to make your way into your college.
Exactly what happened is I was just coming for college to just give an assignment. They were not allowing me to go inside just because I was wearing burqa. They were telling me to remove burqa and go inside. And I came, and then again they started Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Ram, and I was just passing. Again, a lot of boys were standing, and also they were from outsiders and also from our college also. But our principal and every the lectures has supported me. And they started giving slogans like Jai Shri Ram, and they were telling me to remove burqa, then you are allowed to go for college and all. So even I started screaming Allahu Akbar. That's it.
You know, I saw that play out, Muskan. If you see the video, there are so many of them around you. As you mentioned, you know, the college teachers also came to your rescue. They took you away, ushered you safely into the college. What did you think then? I saw how you boldly responded, but were you feeling scared when you saw those men approaching you?
Lots of boys were standing and they were just screaming and coming back of me. And they were showing the fingers like something and all. So I was a little bit scared there. And then when I saw the principals, everyone was just back of me, then I was okay.
Who are these people, Muskan? Are they students from the college, yes, or are they outsiders?
They are students, and from our college itself, a lot of students, they were wearing this orange something, and they were telling if they don't remove the burqa, even we don't remove this.
Have you experienced anything like this before in your college, where, you know, there's so much of divisiveness and there's religion playing out like this?
No, there was nothing. But suddenly, yesterday, actually, principal guided us not to wear this. I said, we carry the hijab. We don't carry the burqa inside the class. We just carry the hijab. But principal yesterday, he was like politely said us, these boys are very, you know, in the anger face. So it's better you don't carry this.
What's been happening in your college also, I want to understand, because there are so many people there that we saw standing outside who were guerrilling you, and I'm sure many other such students who were arriving in the burqa outside the college. What is being done to stop that?
From outsiders also they have come.
Outsiders also have entered your college?
Outsiders also were there, and also the students. They were screaming and something and all, they were just telling us so that we get scared.
How long has this been going on, Muskan? How long has this been going on in your college? And has there been steps being taken to ensure that you're safe?
I am safe, but from yesterday it has happened.
A young girl terrified. At the end of the day, she is a proud Indian citizen who has every right to express herself, but she was harassed. Now, we can go into all the arguments and we will because it's a complex argument. But what is unacceptable is harassment of a young woman. And that's exactly what was going on in the college today. I will come to all my guests one by one, to the lawyers, activists and netas in a moment. But first, to the young women who are joining me, and to you first, Nabila Jamal, because you're with India today. You're a young, proud Indian Muslim woman out there. You don't wear a hijab. I want to know from you, how do you see the controversy in your home state, Nabila? Okay, you're on mute. You're on mute, Nabila. Okay, we will try and go back to Nabila. She's on mute.
Apologies,
Yes, go ahead.
Rajdeep. I'm actually on my way in Uttar Pradesh. We're covering the pole-bound state. But I was saying that it's really upsetting to see my home state, Karnataka, where students in the coastal belt, one community pitted against the other. This is not something new, where female students in most parts of coastal Karnataka, where Muslims are highly conservative. This is a belt where Muslims are very, very conservative. More often than not, you see female girls wearing the hijab to schools and colleges. In fact, I must tell you, Rajdeep, that families are so conservative in that belt that they will not allow female children to go to school unless they actually conform to the hijab.
No, but so is that new? Is that more, just a minute, is that more recent, Nabila, that only in the last few years this has been happening, or has this been happening over a period of time?
Are you asking me if last few years people have started to wear hijab? Or
yes.
Is it
yes, last few years.
No, not at all. Not at all, Rajdeep. For ages, for generations, conservative Muslim women have worn hijab to educational institutions. I'm telling you again, stressing that in the coastal belt, the Muslim families there are highly conservative. And over there, they usually wear the hijab. In fact, this is I know where this question is coming from. You're asking me that many of the girl students, or some of them who protested, initially weren't wearing the hijab, but when the protests escalated, they took on to wearing the hijab in a sign of protest. That's a whole different issue. The fact is that many of the girls were wearing the hijab for years to come. Now, over the last 1 month, there has been the issue that the Karnataka government has now said, with a fresh notification in the last week, that there must be uniformity in the government schools. If you do not shun the hijab, then you can choose the institution of your choice. So these students believe that they were not told from the start when they took admission. There was no rule like that. Now, why has the rule come up?
Very important. You're saying they've been doing this for years. Why has the rule come up now? So that's one question that we will raise. I'm also joined by RJ Saima. Saima, you're a radio jockey. You want to respond to this when you see these images. What's your first response?
Rajdeep, I have to say this, that the entire hijab controversy is not about hijab at all. I mean, let's not befool ourselves by saying that this is about an attire. It's not about an attire. This is a clear violation of Article 19, Article 21, Article 25, and we as a country, we go by our book, the Constitution of India, which guarantees all these fundamental rights. I don't wear a hijab, but I have a right to choice, and it's exactly what the Constitution guarantees, right? So this is clear violation, and for whatever reason, like she was saying that. How come, one fine day I try and enter the same college, the same school, and the gates get closed on my face? What happened? We are no longer a democracy. We are no longer a secular nation. I don't have the right to practice my religion when everybody else is doing it. So, of course, is
hijab an essential part of practicing your religion, or you say it's not about hijab at all?
It's not about hijab at all. It is not about hijab at all. I mean, there are so many people who practice religion in different ways. And while we can, debate and discuss about various issues, whether it's ghungat, whether it's hijab, whatever, but let's save that for some other time. This is not the time to talk about these attires, because it is not about that. So it is, and you cannot introduce a rule overnight. There is a constitution. It guarantees, it is my fundamental right. Nobody can take that away. I mean, you have to pass on a legislation. You have to declare that you are not, following the Constitution of India anymore to introduce something like this. The entire issue is about right to choice. The entire issue is about right to freedom. It's about misogyny. It's about patriarchy. And let's not forget, some time back, we were talking about the Sulli deals and bully buy issue, and I've been a victim of that. I've been targeted for it. Why? Because you are vocal and you are outspoken. The problem is with, girls and women of a particular community, sadly, this time around, who's speaking up.
Okay,
Who basically,
you're saying
they have.
You're saying this is about targeting a particular community, much like in the Bully Bhai case. You see it as part of a larger plan to target and intimidate a community. Let me
Absolutely.
let me turn to you, Shima Mohsin, General Secretary, Welfare Party of India. You're based in Karnataka. You now wear a hijab. Do you believe, as was argued in the court today, that hijab is an essential part of the Quran under Article 25, therefore freedom of religion? You have the right to wear the hijab?
Yes, Rajdeep, hijab is prescribed for believing women. In the ayah number 31 of the Holy Quran, it clearly mentions that all the believing women are prescribed to wear hijab. At the same time, it is an individual choice also. I would not say that those who are not wearing hijab are doing anything wrong, because it is up to them.
Okay.
And when I say that it is when the girls are wearing hijab and coming to the school and colleges, it is not for the first time that they are doing it. They have been doing over ages. We ourselves attended the educational institutions in Karnataka, and we had no such restrictions. Let
me take what all of you are saying to Malvika Avinash, who's getting impatient as she listens to these views. Malvika, these are views of three women: Nabila, Jamal, Saima, who's a radio jockey, and the Secretary of the Welfare Party of India based there. They all are saying, why these restrictions now? Why suddenly overnight has the Karnataka government and indeed schools and colleges in the Udupi, Mangalore area in particular made this such a big issue? Is it to polarize? Is it at the end of the day part of a larger political agenda, not about hijab, it's about a political agenda to send out a message to the minority community?
I think first things first, let me first put in perspective what happens in Karnataka. Unlike many other parts of the state, the Karnataka government schools, right, the intermediary between the state education, that is high school and college, is what is called pre-university college, okay, which is not there in many parts of the state, many parts of the country, because I've studied in other parts of the country too. We have what is called PUC, which is college, which is an intermediary between high school and college. Yeah. Therefore, for the longest time, perhaps many of my friends here who went to PUC or to 11th and 12th were present at a time when there was no uniform. Over the years, it's not the BJP government, but it's successive governments which felt that there should not be disparity among students. Therefore, the individual colleges were allowed to evolve a uniform code. Now, this uniform code is different in different colleges, and the College School Development and Management Committee, they have what is called a SDMC. Now, this committee, which has all the stakeholders, the parents, students, teachers, government officials, it has all the stakeholders in that part of the state who decide what the uniform code should be. And in this particular college, this issue is brand new. These girls were not wearing hijab before this. It is these girls who have started this new practice.
But Malvika Avinash, if I may intervene, the government order of February 5th, 2022 says, invoking 133(2) of the Karnataka Education Act, which says a uniform style of school has to be worn compulsorily. Therefore, it appears that the state has taken a clear stand that they believe that there should be uniform dress code.
Let me explain that. That has come following this issue. This was not there even a month ago. These same girls went to college from July to January without having to wear this hijab. Whatever be their practice, I respect it. However, there is a code to be followed in the school. Therefore, whether it's a saffron shawl which has come in response to this hijab, none of these will be allowed. And now the government is considering evolving a uniform code across the state.
No, but how do you then just let us assume? No, you're saying the government. Ma'am,
I'd like you to give me some time because you've allowed three people to speak, and I have to counter all of them. So you have to give me that time, please. I urge you.
Go ahead.
The other thing that one has to remember is that hijab, what started as hijab, today has ended as burqa, which covers the entire face. Now, how far should these colleges allow children to come in a burqa where nothing, no part of the face is shown? Isn't this a problem of identity politics? This is precisely what children had to be kept away from, which is why a uniform is evolved. We all went to school, we all wore uniforms, not what we felt like or what our religion prescribed. Therefore, why this suddenly? Yes, now we are waiting for the High Court to speak, but until then, for the sake of communal politics, for the sake of these so-called constitutional rights that each one is speaking of, are we going to submit these girls to the same condition as that was many years ago?
Do you justify, ma'am? Do you justify, ma'am? Just a minute. I will get Nabila to do. Just a minute, ma'am. Ma'am, just a minute. No, Malvika ji, I will get Nabila to do a fact check on what you're saying, that this is a school which did not have any such, which did not have students wearing hijab till a month ago. But I just want to ask you, do you justify the manner in which people are now coming slogan shouting Jai Shri Ram, surrounding, encircling this girl, or indeed the violence that you don't approve of that?
The government doesn't approve of it, neither do I, which is why schools have been shut down, so that this kind of unwarranted behavior does not occur in college premises or school premises. Nobody approves of this. I totally condemn this heckling of that girl. However, did the girl have to wear a burqa and enter college? That's something all of you have to discuss.
Okay, I'm going to come to Vrinda Grover in a moment to get the legal perspective. But Nabila, can we just get a quick fact check? Malvika Avinash claims that in this school, there was the original school where it started in Udupi, there was no practice at all of wearing the hijab. This has come only a month ago.
Right, Rajdeep, I cannot speak for sure of that particular institution, but I could say for sure that government institutions in Karnataka, which Malvika Avinash says has always had a perpetual rule of not allowing hijab in institutions, is wrong, because government schools so long have had students coming to classes with hijab, but each institution has an individual equation with the students. Many of them agreed to remove the hijab if the teachers insisted. Many of the teachers sometimes allowed them to come into classes. Also about covering the face, Rajdeep. In fact, many of the institutions have instructed students who want to wear the hijab, I'm talking about even government schools and colleges, to make sure that the color of the hijab or the headscarf is exactly identical to the uniform of that school or college. So it is basically part of the uniform. It's not covering the face. It's not a burqa that you're talking about. It's just a headscarf, which is mandated. It's a tenet in Islam. It's mandated in Islam for a following woman to wear the hijab. It's as sacrosanct as a turban, Rajdeep.
Okay, I'm going to get Zakiriya Soman to respond to what you just said, that it is sacrosanct and must be worn. But Vrinda Grover, you've been also listening in. From a legal perspective, the arguments today in the court were very clear. Article 25, freedom of religion, Article 15, suggesting, the lawyer suggesting that in itself gave the freedom of choice to the girls. On the other side was the state which was arguing, saying the state decides or individual institutions decide. The constitution, freedom of religion or indeed is subject to certain reasonable restrictions. Your response? Ma'am, you're also on mute.
Right. You're absolutely right, Rajdeep. The freedom of religion, to practice your religion, is subject to reasonable restrictions. But what are those reasonable restrictions? The threshold of those are public order, morality, and health. If the law that is made or the rules that are being made do not match public order, morality, or health, then the freedom of religion practice cannot be infringed. Your Article 25 rights, your Article 19 rights, and I would place education, my right to access education, very squarely in my Article 21 rights of right to life with dignity. Those girls, and you were just discussing whether the rule was there earlier, whether they were wearing hijab earlier. Let's go back to the young woman you interviewed, who we saw being criminally intimidated. There were people who were encircling her, threatening her. It wasn't just a set of young men. These were young men who were aggressive, intimidatory. And since I've heard from one of the panelists that the government does not condone this behavior, I seriously hope that they have been arrested for breach of peace, that they are facing criminal prosecution as any government would do. But coming back to this point, so if this is not creating public order, when those 6 women, and we know this young woman who you interviewed, who apparently is doing BCom, as she said to another channel, and said she has been wearing the hijab for long. Was this creating a law and order, or a public order situation? The 6 women, young girls, were outside. They were not being allowed entry. They were sitting outside. This young woman was going to her college when this mob was trying to intimidate her. Where was the public order issue? It's not a morality or health issue, so let's leave those.
No, but can the school? No, but the right of the school to decide whether can the school decide on the dress code or not?
Of course, all schools do. But what is that? What is the code here? The code was allowing hijab. Now the 5th February 2022 order that has come in, which has premised itself on certain judgments, which were discussed in the High Court hearing. None of those actually hold in favor of the state government.
Okay.
Where is the public order questioning? Let us be very clear. This is an engineered, orchestrated issue. And I want to make one more point. We have to look at it from within the perspective of the intimidatory, majoritarian Hindutva politics and the targeting of Muslim women. I want to reiterate what Saima has said. Muslim women, when they are coming out and trying to assert their voices in different ways, what is the response that is happening? And suddenly we have a whole range of people wanting to rescue Muslim women. Can I just make one more point? What does access to education do? It enables you to think independently. It enables you to break out of various shackles, both which could be of religion, which could be of conservative politics. So by actually barring them from education, are you enhancing or restricting their negotiating power within the home, within the community, within society?
Okay, before I come to you, Zakiriya, Soman, let Malvika Avinash respond. Because Malvika Avinash, the charge which is being made consistently is that this is being used as political propaganda. Somewhere this is about intimidating young Muslim women, is the charge which is being made. How do you respond to that? It's one thing to say you condemn the harassment, and good you're condemning the harassment of this young woman, but what is going to be done? The fact is, and we've seen this in coastal Karnataka in particular, where you've got right-wing Hindutva groups and you've got Islamist groups also, both clashing with each other in a manner that, competing religious fundamentalisms, which are now putting Trishul on one side, Burkha on the other. Surely that's not the kind of Karnataka or India we want to see.
Not at all. I completely disapprove of what happened to that young girl today, and that did not happen in coastal Karnataka. That happened in Mandya.
That's
so. Let's not get these geographical locations.
No, it's spreading.
Wrong.
It's spreading from coastal Karnataka to Mandya.
No, I disagree with the earlier panelist on the fact. She spoke of taking these women forward in terms of providing them with education, in terms of making sure that they get the benefit of education and therefore think progressively. Now, if you're going to enable them to go back to some of these religious practices, which includes wearing of a burqa, which completely covers their face, and here is the argument that was put forth by these congressmen who happen to represent them today. He said in court, and I'm saying this, it is not correct for a woman after she starts menstruating to show her hands and face to strangers. And he's quoting, this is Mr. Kamath, he's quoting the hadith. Do you want to allow these girls to go back to the days of Shabanu? That's the question here. And therefore, these are all self-contradictory. On the one hand, you want them to progress. On the other, you are encouraging them to think this way. So I think that's a call that women at large will have to take.
You're saying
is being played by those who are motivating these girls to do so. There was absolute
politics
all this while in the last 7 months.
Politics
so why does the government go about
toxic politics is being played on both sides.
I disagree with this charge against the government, and I urge the women here to think not so myopically, but for long term.
Okay, let Zakiriya, ma'am, you've said this takes you back. You've used Shahbanu twice, and I want to bring you in, Zakiriya, Soman, because you took on Muslim personal laws. You fought for abolition of triple talaq. Do you believe this fits in within that same argument that you made at the time?
See, what we have seen today, the visuals that we have seen today, it is absolutely shameful. And it is a sad day for all of us. And it's a new low in the history of our republic. Let me say that first and foremost. Secondly, what began as a kind of a dispute or disagreement between an educational institute and the girls in hijab has got now completely politicized. And all kinds of elements who are in the business of politics of religion have jumped into the fray. And firstly, when we are seeing secularism in the breach all over the country, then why are we sort of singling out these girls in the name of secularism? So that's a very, very complex situation, but it is not surprising, because the way the politics in our country has been going, such an explosion.
But is it coercive in your view? Is it coercive, and is it a violation of the rights of the woman? Or do you believe that at the end of the day, certain universal values must prevail, including the right of a school or an institution to decide on dress code?
The universal values are intrinsic in the Constitution, no? Right to justice, right to equality, right to education, even upholding pluralism and secularism. That is all part of our Constitution. But even as I am quite firm in my belief, based on a lot of evidence that has been put together by various Islamic scholars, I'm not for hijab, and I believe it is not an essential practice of Islam. But it is that is besides the point. Are we going to decide whether hijab is an essential practice of Islam on the streets by threatening and intimidating girls, by hooligans in saffron sort of trying and harassing and gherawing and showing their hooliganism in broad daylight? Is that the way are we going to settle? What have we come to? And I'm quite shocked. The Prime Minister, who is otherwise so proactive, is going about with business as usual. Why is he not picking up the phone call and speaking to his Chief Minister in Karnataka and ask him to bring the situation under control? So it is, of course,
the situation is under control, ma'am. The schools and colleges
and rights of Muslim women
for the next 3 days.
One by one, ma'am.
Is a real issue. Okay. But this is not the way of resolving it.
Okay, and so you're saying the rights of Muslim women is an issue which needs to be, whether there is an element of coercion, whether there's an element of regressive practices needs to be debated, but you cannot settle it on the street. I think that is clearly what is the point that needs to be stressed again and again. Saima, as you were a victim of the kind of abuse you saw on social media, do you believe that time has come for civil society? Do you believe that there are far too many people too silent at the moment? You need more people to speak up angrily? Or are we such a polarized society today, as we see on social media in particular, that it's impossible to find a reasoned, rational debate? That if you today speak up, Saima, you will be trolled and attacked again.
Oh, yes, Rajdeep, I've always maintained this, that now, the onus of fighting for justice, speaking up for truth, everything is on the people of India. What is a nation but the people of India? And we need to speak up. Silence is consent to hate. And, the kind of hate that we are seeing today, we cannot be silent anymore, and we need to speak up. Of course, there will be repercussions of speaking up, but what choice do we have? We cannot afford a society, those gates being shut on the face of those girls who are perhaps struggling to get education is a very, very unfortunate, picture in everybody's mind. And yes, everybody who's silent today, I have to say this, everybody who's silent today in the wake of such injustices, they are all enablers. They're enabling injustice and hate in our society.
But Shima Mohsin, is it true that there are political parties, Islamist political parties, especially in Karnataka, including parties like the SDPI and the PFI, who've also in a way fished in troubled waters? Do you believe these girls are making independent choices?
Yes, Rajdeep, there is a lot of politicization of the entire issue has been politicized. There are these parties also who are playing like fishing in the troubled waters. I wouldn't say that they are all innocent over here, but what I would like to bring to your notice is, why should the state interpret religion as what is essential and what is non-essential? Whether hijab is essential or non-essential, this is not the job of the government. This is not the job of the state. It is government or the state should be concentrating on providing good governance, giving the people policies to the government. Instead, it is involving in these kind of issues and making the polarizing the people and dividing the people, and allowing it to continue with this
Your point is well taken. Malvika, you raised your hand. Respond.
No, this is all against one. However, it's fine.
It's not all against one. You know, these are various shades. It's a complex issue. There are various shades. Zakiriya Soman, you would know, is someone who has actually fought against triple talaq, ma'am.
No problem. No, it's okay. Let me speak now.
Yeah, please.
The first one that was raised was about the government not taking action against what was going on. You see, this heckling that happened today is a one-off episode which is unprecedented. The government, and which any government would have done, has shut down all schools and colleges to ensure that these kind of elements do not get to do it again tomorrow or day after, so that the High Court the High Court will render its judgment on this petition that has been filed by these girls. The second point that the speaker before me was mentioning is that the government should not get into all of this. Madam, this government, not just the BJP government, all the governments in the past have been doing what is being done now. That is, the government stays out of prescribing the uniform. The uniform is prescribed by individual colleges. I don't know how many more times
I don't know in which government in the past have we seen the kind of hooliganism. It seems as if there's an impunity with which people can come.
And you are speaking over me.
No, I'm not speaking over you, ma'am. I'm just saying that you're saying this has been happening. Yeah, governments have been enforcing a uniform in the past. I haven't seen though in the past the kind of impunity.
Will you please allow me to complete?
Please do.
So many speaking, and I am the lone voice, and you won't let me speak.
Please do.
You see, the government allows individual colleges to decide what the uniform should be. And in fact, there is a Kerala High Court judgment of 2018 which says that. It says it is not for the High Court to prescribe a uniform. Therefore, it is not for the government either to prescribe a uniform. Individual colleges prescribed those uniform, and in this case in the Udupi college, hijab was not prescribed in the uniform. That's about it. It's not that the government is taking over rights of individuals. As far as the constitutional rights are concerned, as far as whether hijab is integral to Islam or not, the High Court will decide tomorrow, and perhaps the High Court will also tell us what a hijab is, whether it's covering the head or whether it's covering your entire body as those girls have done today. That is for everyone to wait and watch and to listen to the High Court of Karnataka tomorrow to tell us what it is going to be.
Vrinda Grover, like in the Shah Bano case, let's assume that the High Court decides tomorrow that, look, it's the right of the school to decide on the uniform prescribed. Hijab is non-essential to Islam, as Zakiriya also seems to suggest. Then, if that is the case, will that be accepted by left liberal voices or not?
It's not about left liberal voices accepting something or not. That's not the issue at all here. The question that comes to my mind, and that is where I think the government is being extremely myopic, if it really has the progress of women at heart, will all these women then be able to continue to access education? Or will families and communities, which are conservative and patriarchal, and all religions are orthodox and patriarchal in different shades, women have fought across the board here. Will those women continue to be able to come to their class, or will the family then say, no, you will not go? What is it that we are working towards? And the job of the state, where they're saying it's not
the matter is before the High Court, madam.
May I finish? You have the power of the government to stop feeling a victim of
the High Court also now?
Can I please finish?
Yeah, please complete.
Without you screaming.
Please
Thank
complete.
you.
Please complete, ma'am.
Ma'am, you're the one screaming. I am not.
Okay. Please complete very quickly,
It's
Brinda. Go
always
ahead.
hard to stop the government from bullying everybody on anything. Can we just see here that when what is the duty of the state? The duty.
One by one, please. Malvika, one by one. Let her finish.
The duty of the state is to protect, respect, and promote freedoms. Not to say, I can't do anything, I don't know what is to be done. What are the various ways in which rights will be enlarged? Women will be able to access greater and greater rights. How do you create that enabling environment?
But we cannot go down the route of the Shah Bano case. We cannot go down the route of the Shah Bano case.
The
Let's be very
Shah
clear.
Bano case is a misplaced analogy here. It's a totally different scenario. It is a case where a Muslim woman goes to court against her husband. The government then passes. The Congress government was wrong, had passed a terrible law. There is no two wits about it, but this is a wrong analogy.
Okay, I think that was important for you to say that. I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. It's a misplaced. I agree.
How did that saffron flag and those saffron shawls come about? Why? A question I want to ask everybody. Why is Jai Shri Ram being cited? If women are wearing hijab, I may think it's wrong. I may think it's a patriarchal imposition. Somebody else may not. But why is it provoking the Hindutva element? I cannot understand. How has this become a war cry? What are you pitting against what? What is this all about? Let us therefore call a spade here.
I want to give Nabila a final word. You know, you are one of our star anchors on the channel. You're from Karnataka. And I don't want to get you into any image or stereotype. But when you've heard this discussion today, does it depress you, or are you hopeful as a young Muslim woman in this country?
Well, Rajdeep, I am hopeful that a constitution will prevail. I'm hopeful for individual freedom to prevail. I'm really hopeful that there isn't the kind of polarization that we see among students. And that's what's really upsetting, that this is no more politics. This is seeped down to educational systems. It's almost like in the blood of the students now for them to be pitting themselves against students of another religion. And that's not something that we've seen rampantly in Karnataka. Lately that we've seen a little more. I wouldn't deny that the coastal part of Karnataka has always been highly polarized, highly sensitive. And it seems like that undercurrent has now surfaced right in the face. It smacked us in the face. And students there are really waiting to get back to their classes and start with their education. It's unfortunate that they are stopped right outside.
As Malvika corrected me, fair enough. And as Malvika corrected me, this incident didn't take place in coastal Karnataka. It took place in Mandya district, very close to Bengaluru. Remember, there's an election. There's an election taking place there.
This is not an individual isolated incident of heckling. Rajdeep, heckling has happened over the last 1 month consistently, which is why it appears that the issue has escalated so far. The PFI, yes, 100% has been remotely backing these students. The RSS, on the other hand, backing the other side.
And that's the tragedy in a way. And remember, there are elections in Karnataka in 14 months. So never be surprised. When elections happen, there's an election in Uttar Pradesh in just 2 days, election in Karnataka in a year. So you, in a way, unfortunately, the toxic nature of politics appears to take over as we come closer to elections. Settling these issues on the street, unacceptable and shameful and unconstitutional to do it through street power. But I appreciate my guest joining me. We've tried to get in the complexity of the issue. Thank you very much for joining me.